At 18 years old, I blew multiple accounts and lost thousands of dollars trying to figure out trading on my own. And today, I trade with a clear, structured, and repeatable system that's allowed me to make trading my full-time job. But more importantly, I've helped hundreds of others do the same by going from consistent red months to now having consistent green months and getting payouts back to back. So if you're anything like I was, barely breaking even and consistently blowing accounts, and you're finally ready to make this change, then this video is going to be everything you need to start that transformation. So let's get into it. First, you need to actually understand the root of your unprofitability. And what I mean is that traders often don't know why they're losing. They'll say things like, I just need more discipline, or they're constantly swapping strategies, thinking that that's the real issue. The real issue is doing things like this. You're blaming your psychology, but you don't actually know how to fix that and what that really is. You're constantly switching strategies without actually having any proven statistic and win rate behind you, and your overall focus more on the profit and the outcome than the process and the journey. And as a trader, you need to start being just brutally honest with yourself. If you're at this stage where you're just constantly blowing accounts and you're basically a break-even trader, you need to just drop your ego and focus on what you're doing wrong. You need to compare how you are in backtesting versus your live performance. If you're profitable in backtesting, but you're not when you're trading in the live markets, then that right there is a psychology issue and not a strategy problem. Because your strategy works perfectly fine when you're backtesting, but then when you take it to the live markets, it suddenly doesn't work. The problem is you not following your rules in the live markets and you not actually having the discipline to stay on side of that winning statistic. Now, if you're losing both in backtesting and in your trading, then that right there is a strategy issue and probably also a risk management issue. And finally, you need to just completely rewire your brain and reframe your goal to not chase profits, but to chase these process blocks. And here's what I mean by this. You need to start thinking about it like going to the gym. You don't control when you start seeing your abs or when you start getting bigger muscles. But what you can control is how often you show up and how consistent you are and how hard you work every single day. Whether you follow that program, whether you eat right, and those micro habits and following those process blocks every single day will then lead to you having those abs, having those muscles. So understand that trading is the same exact thing. I don't control whether or not I make $1,000 in a day or lose $1,000 in a day, but I can control whether I executed my model perfectly and followed the winning statistic and stayed on side of that winning statistic that I know I have because I've been doing that backtesting. And from there, over a long period of time, I will see those profits from trading. So now that you actually diagnose your problem and you're starting to rewire your brain, this next step is the thing that will really keep you alive to start seeing results. And it's to actually lock in with your risk management. I swear, this is the thing that everyone thinks they're doing right and they don't need to care about. And then they take a step back and they actually look at it and it's like, no, you are doing a lot wrong with your risk management. And I've personally been there myself. I would constantly be over risking on every single trade I took. And as an unprofitable trader, this really got to my head because at the end of the day, I wasn't thinking about the strategy and how I can stay on side of this winning statistic. I was just thinking, oh my God, if I lose this trade, then I'm gonna be down X amount of money on this account. And then I'm gonna be really close to my daily loss limit and I'm gonna be really close to blowing this account. And in trading, you cannot be thinking this way, which is why risk management is so important. Because without it, you're gonna be constantly trading off your emotions. You're gonna have so much stress every time you take a trade, and that's gonna lead to revenge trading, moving your stop loss, closing out of trades early. So I'm gonna tell you now how to start having proper risk management. What I highly recommend you start doing is start risking 0.5 to 0.75% of your account. And this is gonna vary based on your max daily loss limit and whatever you're comfortable with. Now let's take a look at this prop firm, Tradeify. You can see here we have a $100,000 account and it's this growth account. And the trailing drawdown, or basically the most you can lose in that account, is $3,500. So knowing this, we wanna position ourselves in a way that that number doesn't affect us. So what we can do is let's look at this $100,000 account. 0.5% of this $100,000 account is what? $500. Meaning you will have to take 7 losses in a row for you to hit that max drawdown. So now you're starting to rewire your brain where you do not care so much about these losses. Because for example, let's say I take 1 loss. I know in the back of my head, I'm gonna need to take 6 more of these for me to actually blow my account in a row. And it's the same thing for a 50K account. Your trailing drawdown here is $2,000, $250, and you have to lose 7 times in a row for you to actually hit that maximum drawdown. Now, of course, I know what you're thinking. 7 losses in a row. This is really overkill, and I don't need this. If you're in this stage of your trading where you're a break-even trader, where you're constantly losing, and you have a good strategy, but you just don't know actually how to apply it in the live markets, you need to just start under-risking yourself. So do this for 2-3 weeks. And if your psychology is at the point where you're like, okay, I don't care about the money, I don't care about the trade and the outcome, whether or not this wins or loses, then you're at the right stage. And then we can start upping our risk to around 0.75%, which is gonna look like what? Around $750. And now this comes out to more of like a 5 trade buffer. So you can lose $5 5 trades in a row before you actually blow the account. And this doesn't come out to an exact calculation, but this is around 37.50. So it's around 4 to 5 trades before you blow your account. And then 0.75% of this account is what? $375. And again, that comes out to around 4 to 5 trades before you actually blow the account. And sorry, I just realized I did my math wrong. This is actually 8 trades in a row before you lose that $2,000. So it's a little bit different when it comes to 100Ks and 50Ks. But anyways, 0.75%, you would need to take then 6 trades in a row before you actually blow the account, right? So you can slowly start asking yourself these questions. Like, am I comfortable with 1 loss? And look in your backtesting and see what's the longest losing streak you have. Let's say it's 3 trades. Okay, then give yourself like a 4 trade buffer, because you know, based on statistics, you're probably not going to lose more than 4 trades in a row. But I highly suggest all of you starting out with 0.5%. Now, once you actually lock in your risk management, you're going to already see a huge change in your trading. But now I'm going to dive into the one habit that I swear by. And I'm telling you, it is what made me a profitable trader. And that is to not only journal every single trade you take, but to review the week. If you watch any of my previous videos, you know I always stress the importance of journaling every trade you take. And there is a reason for that. It is because your memory is emotional, meaning when you lose a trade, you remember it one way. And then when you win, you remember it another. But really, neither version is accurate. And this is where journaling comes in. If you're someone that can take wins, but then you're also seeing that you're just taking a bunch of unnecessary losses, well, then this is where journaling comes into play. And this is going to skyrocket your win rate. As an unprofitable trader, I would always think that I don't need to do journaling, that I already understand my wins, I understand my losses, I don't need to do that. But it is simply about data collection with your strategy. At the end of the day, the markets are constantly evolving, so you need to always be on side of whatever the market is telling you and adjust your strategy with that. Now, that doesn't mean making drastic changes to your strategy, but journaling will tell you where and when your strategy is most likely going to fail and when and where it's most likely going to work. And again, your win rate will then skyrocket. And me, I still journal to this day. Every win I take, every loss I take, I still stay that disciplined trader, because these were the habits that took me to become a profitable trader. So I cannot break them. Now, let me show you what one of my journal entries looks like. Okay, so this is a trade I took, and you can see here, this was a long. We swept out this 5-minute intermediate low. This is actually a trade I took when I was in Tulum, and we had a 1-minute inverse, relative equal highs, and we had an unfilled 4-hour as that main draw on liquidity, and that higher time frame draw above as well, right? So this was the idea of the trade. Now, what am I actually going to put in my journal? Well, let's scroll down here. This is the RR, which was about a 1 to 1.1 on this trade, as you can see. The draw on liquidity was these relative equal highs that we had right here, and then also this unfilled 4-hour as the main draw. The key level I have is this 5-minute intermediate low. The entry was the PDI, which is just this accumulation, manipulation, distribution. 1-minute inverse. It was then a 5-minute continuation, and it was also ABS, which is just anticipatory breaker block strategy, where I'm anticipating this to be a low, high, lower, higher, high, and this is just the model of anticipating this to be a breaker block. But yeah, that's what I write there, and then I also have the time. I took this from 9:55 to 10 o'clock. I also have open, high, low, close, open, low, high, close. What was it? And you see here that we did have a 9:45 open, low, high, close. We had this 9:45 candle open. That, as you can see, we ran lower. We didn't run higher, ran lower, had this. And the day that I took this trade was on a Tuesday, and I would rate this an A+ setup. And then I also write all the confluences. We are higher time frame in a buy model. We have obvious 15-minute buy side. We displaced heavily through previous day high and created this 5-minute bullish gap. We also had this 930 low on ES swept, so there was a bullish SMT with this trade as well. And this was the highest time frame IFG. And what can I prove? Really nothing. And sometimes when I have nothing to improve on, right, because it's just such an A+ setup and it's really with my model, I'll just give myself notes to remember. So for example, something to remember is telling myself breakaway gaps like this are amazing. You shouldn't care about a 15-minute fair value gap opening when we've already mitigated the 5-minute range and have the IFG, because this will then be a breakaway gap. So you don't need to care about 15-minute gaps opening. And this is just little notes that I leave to myself so I can remember what this A+ setup looks like and, you know, how to capitalize on them. Now, on top of these journal entries, I also do weekly reviews every single Sunday inside of my 1% mentorship. And what I'll basically do is just look at every single trade I took throughout the week and look at all my journal entries and really just digest and see what I did right and what I did wrong on the week. And this is really important because a lot of the times you're probably not in the right headspace after taking a trade. Your brain will probably just make up things to see because you're just focused on the money, and trading live, of course, is just really stressful. So just taking a step back at the end of the week and really reflecting on your trades and understanding what was A+, what was B, what are trades that I should have taken, what are trades that I shouldn't have taken. This is going to also increase your win rate by a ton. Now, even if you're journaling consistently, you still need to be loyal to your strategy, even sometimes after a couple of losses. And how you actually do that and gain that confidence is through backtesting. Because confidence isn't built when you're actually just live trading. It's built long before you even enter. If you jump into a setup unsure of your edge in the market, you're probably going to second guess the trade, hesitate, and just overall make emotional decisions. And this is probably where your unprofitability comes into play. And you'll see yourself do things like you're going to move your stop loss, you're going to move your take profit, you're going to hesitate on setups and not take them and then watch them play out. And that's the truth. The only way you can build confidence and not be emotional when you're in the live markets is by backtesting. Okay, so how I backtest is using this platform called FX Replay, right? And you can see I have about a 71% win rate. And even before this, bro, I remember, I'm going to go on my phone right now and show you guys this because it was funny. I used to backtest, and I don't know why I did this, but I used FX Replay and then I like did it on my phone and I did the journaling on my phone and stuff. And look at this. I have like 2020 backtesting here, and I'll just write down all of my wins, my losses, and like my statistics. And I just did the whole entire freaking year, man. And this was, I think I had FX Replay, but I was using like the free version for 7 days. So I was just on like a 7-day streak and I wanted to keep that journal. So dude, I was doing some broke ass things, but it's not that expensive and I should have just paid the $20 a month. So invest in FX Replay, guys. Invest in this platform. It's really great. You can see all of your wins, all of your losses. Like for example, I'm backtesting here, 2025, just, you know, I'm doing the year. You can see I have about a 70% win rate. We can see what our average RR is, our max R. You can also see like when you perform the best. Okay, so I have a really actually high win rate on Mondays and Tuesdays and the beginning of the week and Wednesdays. And then slowly when it gets to near the end of the week, like, you know, Thursday and Friday, that's when my win rate shots down. So maybe I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll risk lower on Fridays, or maybe I will be a lot more cautious of the trades I take on Fridays, and maybe I'll risk more on like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, right? And you know, you can start just filtering out your wins, your losses, and also journaling. Your backtesting is really, really important. There's a journal section right here, and you can literally just journal the same way you journal on TradeZella. Do it exactly the same with backtesting. Again, that's going to be really, really helpful. And how I want you guys to backtest is the same way you're going to trade in the live market. So if you only trade the NASDAQ, then just backtest the NASDAQ. Don't backtest freaking gold because there's no point in that, right? Understand the nuances with trading the NASDAQ. And then if you're trading from 9:30 to 11, trade from 9:30 to 11 in backtesting and get your win rate on that. If you can only trade London session, then just backtest London session, right? So do those things and make sure you're backtesting the same way you would trade the live markets. And I know what you might be asking yourself, Blake, how much should I actually be backtesting every single day? When I first started off, I was backtesting hours upon hours every single day, and it was not good. You could clearly see like my win rate was just slowly declining throughout the months because I was backtesting literally months every single day. It was crazy. And that just leads to you having a worse win rate over time because your brain is not able to place high quality setups and, you know, be onside that winning statistic for so long. It gets mentally taxing. So what I highly suggest, so you have accurate data and you can actually retain the results, because you should be journaling, is to do 1 week worth of data per day. And this will take, I would say, about an hour a day if you're backtesting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you're journaling every single trade and every single day. I think that's really important, and to not go over that, because I'm telling you, you will start getting emotional in backtesting. A lot of people don't think that that's a real thing, but it is real, especially when you start just overworking your brain. So that's the main thing here. More hours doesn't equal you're going to become a better trader. It's really about the quality of the hours that you're putting in that work. And everything I've talked about so far is revolved around the charts. But the most profitable traders and the ones that are the most consistent and disciplined are also building that composure outside of the charts. Now, it might not seem directly related to trading, and I know what you're probably thinking, you know, this is not going to be necessary, but your life outside the charts has such a huge impact on how you trade. And I'm going to show you exactly why. When I first started off trading, my routine outside the charts was absolutely horrible. And I'll tell you what it was. I would literally wake up 1 minute before market open, boogers still in my eyes, be trying to scan the charts and form a bias. The blinds are like still shut. It was pitch black in my room. And I would literally trade from 8:30 a.m. all the way to like 4 p.m. I would just be locked in the freaking charts, spamming the buy button, spamming the sell button, just trying to make some profit. I wouldn't go to the gym. I wouldn't eat healthy. And I would literally just have no routine. I would just trade and log off whenever I felt like it. And this led me to having, again, no discipline in my trading. And that's really because I wasn't giving myself allocated hours to trading, right? I would trade whenever I want, however long I want, and, you know, whenever I felt like it. So whether or not I was feeling shitty and I woke up and I had bad sleep, I would trade, and that would probably reflect in my trading. Now, the second I started having structure outside of my life, that is when I started seeing actual results within my trading. I would wake up earlier so that I can look at the charts with a fresh mind. I would also always make it a note to myself that I have to eat at 12 p.m. every single day, or I have classes that I have to go to at 12 p.m. So I'm not going to stay on the charts until like 4 p.m. I'm going to get off at around 11, do my journaling then, and then leave. I then went to the gym every single day. I ate healthy, clean food, so I felt good, and I got 8 hours of sleep every single night. And this this is where my trading really skyrocketed, because now I actually have a life outside of the charts, and I stopped caring so much about the intraday results from my trading. Whether I took a win, whether I took a loss, I couldn't like dwell on that, and I couldn't celebrate because I had other shit to do in my day. And of course, you can have your emotions in trading. I'm not here to say that I'm completely emotionless now. Sometimes when I take a loss, it's like, damn, I took a loss. Like, it's not the best feeling in the world, but I know I'm still onside my winning statistic after I journal, after I do my work. And it's like when I take a win, nice, the winning statistic played out in my favor today, and I made some money. Glad I did that, and I'm happy about it. But the main thing and the main point I'm trying to get at here is not to act on your emotions. And by having this life outside of the charts, you're really not able to. Because if I take a loss and I'm like, fuck, like I want to revenge trade right now, I want to make that money back, and it's like, I can't, because I have to go to the gym, I have to go eat, I have to go to my classes that I have scheduled. And that's when you'll start seeing that discipline in your trading, is by just forcing it. Now, what I also want to add to that with forcing that discipline is to not only force it off the charts, but also on the charts. Meaning if you take a loss, have that lockout button on your trading. And you can do that with the majority of these prop firms nowadays, is just having a lockout button. So every time you lose, for example, 0.5%, your trading is just completely locked out for the day. And this is literally going to force you to take one trade a day, win or loss, and be done. And this is what I highly freaking recommend for all of you guys. And this is especially what I recommend for you guys that are just consistently losing money, even when you have a profitable system. Have that lockout feature and literally force yourself to not revenge trade, and just take your one setup for the day, and that is it. You're done, and move on. And now I want to talk about the final piece that will really transform your trading to enforce you actually executing your trades. And this is by using an on-screen checklist. Because here's the problem with trading in real time. Your brain doesn't work the same when the money's on the line. You overthink, you hesitate on setups that you probably should be taking, and you take trades you shouldn't take. And this is exactly why so many traders can perform perfectly in backtesting, but then when it comes to the live markets, they're literally a different trader. In backtesting, there's no pressure. And then in the live markets, every decision feels extremely weighted. So the solution here is for you to remove that decision making. So how do you do that, you may ask? You create an on-screen checklist. Every single time before you enter a trade, you should go through this checklist that you created. And here's what should be on it. Have this daily bias be out in front of you, and have this be the overarching part of your checklist. Set yourself these if-then statements. Here's an example of a daily bias I had, right? Bullish bias coming in the morning. We swept previous day low, the intermediate low inside the daily BISI. Currently displacing higher. If we get the 50-minute change in state of delivery, hourly change in state of delivery, we can expect London highs, the recent buy side, blah, 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 all this nerd talk. Anyways, I said, see you all it up and whatever, right? And this is just my bias, right? So this is the overarching point in my checklist, okay? So I want to be taking trades alongside this daily bias. And you can see here, we actually rip up to hitting that take profit, right? So again, this is the overarching thing of my checklist. Now, the second thing on your checklist should be the session that you are trading. So the time. Are you trading within your 9:30 to 11 o'clock? Or if you're trading London, are you trading from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m.? Number 3, making sure that you have an obvious draw on liquidity, whether that's relative equal highs, relative equal lows, an unfilled, unmitigated gap. And whatever your draw on liquidity is, just make sure that it's clear and obvious, and that price is clearly telling you that we are going for that area. Number 4, and this should honestly be a point in itself, but to go for low hanging fruit and aim for about a 1-to-1 R or better. And what I mean by this is there are always going to be, higher targets and lower targets in the markets. They're always going to be that. But especially as a trader, taking these base hits of just simply targeting areas around a 1-to-1 is going to be so much better for your mental and your psychology. Because not only are you going to win more, but you're also going to get on and off the charts a lot quicker, and your days in trading is just going to be a lot faster, meaning you're going to start not caring so much about your trading. And that is that mentality that you want to be at as a profitable trader. Number 5 is making sure that you're trading the highest time frame inversion. And this is specifically when you're trading my model. But if you're not trading my model, just make sure you're onside that entry model that you're on. For example, making sure you're taking the change state delivery entry or the fair value gap tap if you trade that. Number 6, making sure you have a higher time frame key level that we're bouncing off. And this ties everything really together, because in order for really a trade to be valid, you need to have those 3 things. You need to have a key level where price is clearly rejecting off. You need to have an obvious draw, and you need to have your entry model. And then second to last here, we have, would I take this in backtesting? Ask yourself, would I take this if I had no money on the line? If this was just a random day in my backtesting, would this be with the winning statistic that I have? And the final question I want you guys to ask yourself, and have this in your checklist, is if I take this trade, would I be mad at myself? Because there are a lot of trades that I know that you guys have taken, and then immediately after you're like, why the fuck did I take that trade? That was so stupid. But really ask yourself, you know, if this trade lost, would I be mad at myself? And then run yourself through that scenario in your head. Okay, if this trade lost, would I be mad at myself? No, everything on my checklist is clearly aligned. This is something that I would take in backtesting, and you know, this is honestly a great setup. And if this trade won, perfect. I wouldn't feel overly joyed. I just know this setup is great because again, it's aligned with my winning statistic. And that is it. That's what you should have in your checklist, but adjust it to whatever your own likings are. And if you just commit to this for just 3 months, you will be a completely different trader than the one you are today. I'm telling you, try this out and take it slow. Follow all of these steps that I just gave you for the first week, then do it for another week, and then do it for 3 weeks. And then you will see, oh my God, at the end of this month, I'm able to take a payout. I've had a great winning month. So stop procrastinating. If you want anything to change with your trading, it starts with changing these habits. Because whatever you're doing right now as an unprofitable trader, it is a disservice to your future self. Ask yourself right now, how bad do you want this? How many more weeks are you gonna go not following your rules? And would the profitable version of yourself be doing those things? Lock the fuck in.